Good day. So there was a discussion on the theory forum the other day about um, diatonic versus chromatic, and generally we take these terms, um, as a given. Diatonic's in the key of, and chromatics are not in the key of. And then somebody brought up some other things, and it got me thinking. What if we consider modes? So let's jump in here. If you are a beginning theory student, I will tell you when you can jump off because it's going to get in the weeds. So hold on. So when we're talking about scales and diatonic versus chromatic, we could say diatonic is in the key or mode of. Chromatic is something that is not in that key. So just take any key. There are 7 notes, 7 key or mode. Excuse me. There are 7 notes. So any note that's not one of those notes is a chromatic. Okay. So if I'm playing C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C in my scale, any note that is not that is considered a chromatic. Boom, done. And of course, you can embellish your melodies with chromatics. Composers do that all the time, by adding a half step here or trilling between different notes or whatever. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things that are actually part of the quote unquote melody, not a decoration. Um, and we also have to understand that with chromatics are all half steps, but not all half steps are necessarily chromatic. Okay, and this is what got me thinking. So in E and F and B and C in the key of C are chromatic intervals. They are half steps. But, there's a but, they belong. Okay? And also, no matter what instrument you play, you probably had to learn your chromatic scale on it at some point. It's one of those major hurdles you learn when you start playing, especially to be able to play your full range of your instrument in one breath kind of thing. It's one of those achievements you have early on. So let's look. All right. So here is your basic C scale. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about with diatonic. Okay, that is a diatonic C scale. If I change any of those notes, it's going to be a chromatic. If I add a note between, say, A and B, I put in an A sharp or a B flat, it is a chromatic. If I add a note between F and G, it's a chromatic. If I add any note in between any of these things, it's a chromatic. These, remember, E and F and B and C are naturally occurring chromatics. Okay, you also have your chromatic scale, which is just all the notes, all the white and black keys. Okay, so you have your chromatic scale. It's its own scale, and that means chromatic means color, and you're saying all the colors. So you're saying all the notes. Okay, in your um, thing. So we have diatonic. So if it's not, so in my key, if it doesn't belong there, it's not in the key signature, it's a chromatic. I also have a chromatic scale. So that is our simple definition. All right, we're going to get into the weeds. So if you are happy with the definition of diatonic being in the key of and chromatic is not in the key of, good. You can get off now, and I'm going to count down from 5 because it's going to get kind of hairy here. So 5, 4, 3, 2. So somebody brought up the thing about, well, what about modes? So like if if you're playing in the key of C and an E flat shows up, is it necessarily chromatic? Well, we got to look at function first. If it's just a color note, like you're just leading into something, and the rest of the harmony doesn't go, that's a sort of a decoration. It's using a dissonance, to uh, get the listener's attention. You also think of Stars and Stripes Forever. Da 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 da. All right, so there's passing notes, um, and they're not. If you look at the whole score, they're not harmonized, so they're just there. So we could say that's just chromatic. Okay, but if I'm taking the time to harmonize each note, then you have to really say, well, it is chromatic, but it had to come from somewhere. All right, so if I'm using borrowed harmonies or borrowed chords from different modes, then it has to come from somewhere. So then it says, well, if I'm using that as a functioning harmony, is it chromatic? And my sort of thesis in this is, no, it's not, and I'm going to explain why. So if you consider that your major or technically minor key are just those 7 notes, and any note that's there that doesn't belong, that is a chromatic. Okay, that's a simple definition. If you consider all the modes and they are harmonized in and I'm even going to go so far as to say function. Okay, so if I am playing in C and I come across a B flat major chord and it's serving the function as a substitute 5, well, that B flat chord came from somewhere. So is it really chromatic? And I'm going to say no, because in C, just offhand, Mixolydian or Aeolian, those chords belong there. And then you can just say that what we would consider maybe chromatic are just flavors of different scale degrees. And I break this down here in a second. So when you're playing with modes, another cool thing is, so if I write my piece out in C major, and I did a video on this earlier, go look back at, it's called Playing with Modes. I take a simple melody with sort of a generic chord progression, and then I run it through the modes just to see what would happen. Okay, and I'll give a shout out to Hook Theory, because they have made that so much easier, especially if you were me and you grew up with your composition tool was a keyboard and a piece of paper, so you can do this sort of instantaneously. And one of the things I learned when you will learn when you're doing that, you just can't slap a mode on to things and say, well, done, because conventional functions and your minor and your major chords move around, and especially your diminished chord moves around when you're playing with modes. So just because you can, go ahead, have a diminished, I don't know, 4 chord, and then it just doesn't sound good. So you just because you can, the point behind that is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay. All right. So, but it opens up, using modes opens up your compositional possibilities without having to reinvent your existing melody. And that's the point. So I write a melody and I say, well, what would it be like in this mode? And also, mixing modes can keep things interesting. All right? Because there's been some calls about that. So just because you're in a mode doesn't mean you have to stay in a mode. All right. Now, this is a little melody for from Carl Orff's Music for Children, and I liked it because it was really catchy, and I've done it with students before, and they loved it. Okay, and this is an example, very simple example of mode mixture, where he starts out in Aeolian, which is given away by, we're in D minor, which is given away by the by the B flat, and then the next one, at the second part, the B section has a B natural, which is native to the Dorian mode. Okay, so you can mix them up, and the reason he did this, okay, is because it avoids the tritone here. Okay, he's not implying any harmony, but he wanted to keep, or Capeman, most likely who wrote this, wanted to keep perfect fifths in the B section, not having a how do you call it, a tritone in there. So the first part is an Aeolian, the second part is Dorian, and here it is. It's a very satisfying little dance piece. Here we go. All right. So that is a very simple example of mode mixture. All right. Where he uses Aeolian and Dorian in the same piece in different sections. It solves the problem of the tritone because you're working with children and you want them to be able to sing it or play it and have it sound nice. All right. So that is a very simple example of mode mixture. I also have an example of mode mixture in the link in the description to a piece that I wrote back in 2017 that uses the same ideas but in different modes. So you check that out too. Now, one of the most common ways to get flavors or different modes is to borrow chords from different keys or different modes. All right. The ones that you'll see the most often, okay, you can switch out a minor 4 for a major 4. You can switch out a minor 5 for a major 5, and you can switch out a major 7 for a diminished 7. And on the right here, I'm telling you where those what modes those chords come from. Okay, so let's look at our matrix of all your possibilities of modes. Okay, so if I do my mode in a Ionian, so my major scale, okay, my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chords, those are my options. In Dorian, okay, my 1 is now minor, my 5 is now minor, and you can see how all, because the shifting half steps, everything's moving over to the left. Okay, and you can really see that if you start on the 7 and then go diagonally from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, how that diminished chord just basically moves over because the half steps are all getting rearranged by the different modes. All right, so and then it also illustrates really well your that your major modes start on a major 1 chord. Your minor modes start on a minor chord. All right, and so these are all your permutations of your modes in the key of C. All right, for those of us who are visual learners, here are your modes in C. All right, so Ionian, no sharp flats, Dorian, 2 flats. Phrygian is basically key of E flats, A flat starting on C. Lydian is the key of G starting on C. Mixolydian is key of F starting on C. Aeolian is key of E flat starting on C. Locrian is key of D flat starting on C. All right. And from those, you can go down here, and this is how you can extrapolate your harmonies from each mode. Okay? And just for fun, I also did it in F sharp. And the same pattern occurs, it just looks different. So you have key of F sharp. Ionian as the key of F sharp, starting on F sharp. Dorian is key of E, starting on F sharp. Phrygian is key of D, starting on F sharp. Lydian is key of, oh dear God, what is that? C sharp. Am I doing that right? Yeah, C sharp, starting on F sharp. Mixolydian is the key of B, starting on F sharp. Aeolian is the key of A, starting on F sharp. And Locrian is the key of G, starting on F sharp. And I also added it in bass clef because I haven't done anything in bass clef for our friends in bass clef world. So there you go. So let's wrap this up. So modal alterations, okay, possible alterations of the scale from your quote-unquote major scale include flat 2, flat 3, sharp 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. So if you see those as a functioning harmony, okay, which is, so I've just added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible chromatics. So you have 7 and 6, that's 13 possible chords. Okay, so if you're looking at your if you're doing a harmonic analysis and you see any of these, okay, scale degrees are they're harmonized funcally, you know they are from a borrowed harmony, probably from a mode. Now, to distinguish which mode, okay, sometimes you can't really know, but you know, because like up here, you know, the flat 5 and flat, or sorry, not the flat 5, the minor 5 and the flat 7 could be from Dorian, Mixolydian, or Aeolian. So if I was going to say, if I was doing an analysis and I came across either of these two, the minor 5 or flat 7, I would include a note that this note is borrowed from. If the piece is in minor, I would say the composer is borrowing it from Dorian or Aeolian. If the piece is in major, I'd say they're borrowing it from Mixolydian. The minor 4 can be borrowed from the Phrygian or Aeolian. All right. So depending on, basically on this one, if your key's in major, give credit to the Mixolydian. If it's in minor already, give credit to Dorian or Aeolian. There you go. All right. So back to here. We have our native modal chromatics. So these are the ones that can be attributed to a mode. So then I said, what are the truly chromatic scale degrees? Now, of course, you cannot alter 1. If you alter 1, then you're in a different key and you're off somewhere else. Okay, and then then it's off to the wind. Everything's gone. Poof. So if I wanted to say what are truly chromatics, would be a written sharp 2, a written sharp 5, or a written sharp 6. Okay, now that is a functioning chord that has those. So then you definitely know that these are not, if your harmonic analysis includes sharp 2, sharp 5, sharp 6, you know it is not from a mode. Okay, so this is your sort of your cheat sheet. Okay, now of course, okay, you say, well, what about 3, 4, and 7? Well, a sharp 3 is the same as 4, and a flat 4 is the same as 3. and a sharp 7 is the same as 1. And definitely, if you see those, you're definitely going somewhere the composer's, I would say, has lost their mind and gone off in some other world or key. Okay, so again, let me just say this again. This is a cheat sheet. So if you're doing your analysis and you come across chords, functional harmony, that contain the top row, you can probably confidently say they came from a mode of that scale, of your whatever your home key is. Okay, if you are coming across sharp 2, sharp 5, sharp 6, it definitely came from somewhere else that is not related to a mode. Okay, so in conclusion, with the modes, you can have native, quote unquote, chromatic, flat 2, flat 3, sharp 4, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7. And if they're functional harmony, I don't want to call them chromatic because they came from a mode that came from somewhere else. All right. If that helps you out at all, please give this video a like and subscribe. Also, the studio is open. If you would like a guide on your composition and theory journey, give me a call. I teach through doing, through inquiry. So you bring the questions, and I help you find the answer. I don't answer them right away. I will put you on the path to answer it, because if you do the work, you will learn it, rather than me just giving you the information. Anyway, you have a great day, and I will see you later. Goodbye.